Buon pomeriggio.
So good afternoon and welcome back. We have a tough task because we are the last panel of the day, but I'll try and do the best. I'm Roberta Terzi, Strategic Foresight Specialist, and I have the honor and pleasure to moderate this panel, New Challenge of Working Space Design, Human Behavior at the Center of Design. So, a physical space that receives something that comes from outside. This explains a challenge, the awareness of finding a space for everyone. It's not only a physical space, but it becomes a personal space of socialization. Making space includes changing relations and spaces that can no longer be the old ones. Going back to the famous book, The Small Prince, the time you lost for your rose make the rose so important. Taking care of something is a starting point for any significant relationship, and also taking care of physical space means caring for those who inhabit the space. Therefore, inclusion is something we should always value in our daily life, designing our life, leisure space, working space, etc. Heterogeneous professionals like those convened here in these days, it's important to forge our future. It's important to develop an anticipating ability that is typical of foresight. Anticipating means foresight, and we have to have some foresight to try and design our living spaces. Mentioning Ren, who is a father of complexity, we need a thought that addresses us to comprehension, understanding, and this is the leitmotif of our panel. We can listen to important speaker who will present case history and also the cultural, psychological implication. But without further ado, I would like to present the first panelist, Alexandra Majorano, Senior Event Manager of Venture Group. You might have wondered, we have 4 speakers. Well, we have capitalized on a model that we will describe later on. I'll stay here and the panelists move around, and we will discover why we have adopted this model. You have the floor. Good afternoon. I will start by introducing myself. So I'm Alexandra Majorano, and as Roberta said, I'm event manager of Venture Group. I've been working about 20 years in the company. It's an investment company that invests in digital startups that have a high scalability potential. We are in the Milan Stock Exchange, and we organize events, but also Innovation Hub. So where startup can meet. In the 10 years of work, I had the honor to participate in the action plan in different hubs. Our company and also other companies, a requalification of startup space at the new Eni space here in Rome, and another at Rome Airport in Fiumicino, Terminal 1. So space is essential for startups. When we create space, for us it is important to understand how very ambitious startup can become big companies thanks to the interaction between corporate investors and all the other stakeholders. So just to start, I would like to show you a video clip. I would like to show you our spaces. So let's watch this video clip. So why did I show this video clip on LVenture Group? Just because images are very important and show the dynamism that we want to establish. We started actually in 2012. This was 2021, and we had these masks. And we were very close to Termini station, and then we moved to Via Giolitti, and now we have changed headquarters again, 9,000 square meter. So we always moved around Termini station, even if we grow in size. We want a startup to come and grow. Termini is very important and strategic from a logistical viewpoint. And the managing director, Luigi Gabello, when he started the project, he was inspired by the American models and therefore thought about an accessible space. Termini Station is very accessible, easy meeting there, and it's a meeting, international, national meeting place. So what is important to understand how to create the spaces first and foremost to look for the appropriate space, so Termini Station. Then the second step, how can we have startups want to come? So both startups and corporates and companies have to fill the space. And we could subdivide the environment according to their function. You have seen this open space, which is large, 7-meter high, and then we designed it with fun, thanks to very smart architects. And in this very dynamic space where startups can be in close physical contact, is offering opportunity and also help. I have a problem and I share it with the startup just sitting next to me, and I have a problem solver in front of me. And compared to other co-working spaces which have already been described, our spaces seem as an ecosystem. So people do not come for one day or a month, but we want to have longer term working position. This is so startups and freelance that can help each other. And then we have to look at the needs of corporates that want to come and have their space, but they need offices. And so we have organized a separate corporate wing, let's say. And of course, the superintendents supported us in our design. We maintained the railway building as they were, and we dedicated a part to corporates. And then third aspect is event space. We organized our own event, and we offer also the possibility to external companies to take a space and organize their events. So we created a dynamism based on each one's needs, and therefore this is how we convince them to come and join us. What happens? Of course, our residents, both in terms of events and appointments, so what they need to do in order to meet. So you know that we have, thanks to the Termini railway location, we have 600 people coming every day. Space is important, and we always try to create opportunities. So space is subdivided according to the needs of startups, freelancer, and corporates in this bigger framework of appointments, opportunities, etc. What comes next? What is the next step in order to give an added value to our product? We set up new partnerships that make sense because we have always the same goal. Ambitious startups that join our space can grow and become big companies thanks to investors, stakeholders, etc. So we have promoted partnerships, successful partnership. The first was with Facebook, now Meta, that chose us to open the biggest competence center in Europe in 2018. So they took 600 square meters and their own space where they have the Facebook Competence Center, where you can update or discover free skills. So our residents or others can meet within the framework of Meta. This is important, so we are very glad because they chose us. So second step is involving Leonardo. Leonardo took spaces in our hub to create together with us a program of vertical acceleration in terms of cybersecurity and internationalize our model, because Israeli startups, American startups joined in and participated in the program. So Leonardo helped us to make a further step forward. And another important partnership was with Lewis University, School 42. I don't know whether you know this format, which is marvelous. It is a processing school, totally free, where students after 2 weeks of selection can access this course for free. What is special about the course is that participating students, first of all, they don't need to be developers, and we don't have teachers, but only tutors, and everything is based on gamification and mutual help. Having this developers community is very important because they can come in contact with startups. So digital skills, developer academy, Leonardo in the international scenario enabled us to really grasp new opportunities and offer this in turn to our residents. So we started from designing spaces, and then we tried to develop new interactions. And I was saying that we have cross-contamination. but this is something we can no longer say. So let's say interaction, opportunity amongst the different stakeholders. And to conclude, we plan space, physical space. So we had also interior design because we wanted to develop something which is in line with the dynamism that we want to promote, and I hope that you got it from the video clip. But there is also a strategic approach, and this summer we had the Termini terrace. Well, actually our hub terrace, which is a rooftop terrace, with a splendid 360-degree view on Rome. So we hope to invite startups and intrigue them to come, invite investors to invest in projects. We have a big portfolio of projects. We are expert in developing projects. That's it. Thank you for your kind attention.
Grazie dottoressa, è stata perfettamente.
Thank you. You stuck to the allotted time. So the centrality of the person when meeting different competencies and realities to create communities. Now, thinking about spaces in the working world and the business world, I have the pleasure of introducing the next panelist, Antonia Velenovici. I hope I pronounced it yet. Senior Talent Acquisition Consultant. Thanks to her experience as HR manager, she works for many multinationals, and she will focus on behavioral aspects and temperamental traits in relation to physical spaces, thinking about physical well-being, overcoming cultural barriers. You have the floor.
All hear me? Good, perfect. Thank you for the introduction. I don't speak Italian very well, so I'm sorry. I'm going to have to do it in English. As Roberta said, my name is Antonia, and I'm an HR professional, but also organizational psychologist. For the past almost 7 years, I've been working with big multinational companies, especially when it comes to finding, hiring, and retaining talent. Can I have the remote, please? Yes. Good, perfect. So today I want to speak about how we can foster an inclusive work environment where everyone, and especially highly sensitive people, can thrive. To begin with, when we're talking about a good environment to work with, we're talking about well-being at work. But why is well-being at work important? Well-being at work is not only, let's say, a moral or a legal imperative to companies. These days, if you want to be a good, let's say, productive business, you must create an environment where your people can thrive. How does it impact financial performance? Well, first of all, employees who are in a, let's say, positive environment have increased productivity. They are able to produce more work output, and they are more resilient when it comes to challenges. They are also more engaged. What engaged means is that they don't only do the task that they are assigned, they are also willing to do more, and this also contributes to innovation and creativity. They also take less leave when it comes to medical or physical health. They don't miss work or they don't skip work, and it also reduces turnover. So you don't have the cost associated with hiring and training new people. So overall, let's say that besides being a moral and legal imperative, having a workplace that is positive is a very important financial aspect for businesses. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have burnout. I guess everyone here knows what burnout is. I do hope you don't know it personally. Burnout is associated with poor working conditions, and it leads to mental health issues. It leads to more injuries at work. It can lead to even legal implications for companies, so we want to avoid that. If we look at the science and what psychology says about well-being and burnout, there is a model that's been studied for over 2 decades, and it's called the job demands resources model. What this model tells us in very simple terms is that the world of work, it's managed by two variables. There are job demands on one hand. These are the bad guys, right? These are the aspects of the job that require us to have sustained physical or mental effort. Imagine these being, let's say, performance indicators by your boss, time pressures that you have to finish a task, the fact that your colleagues are not supportive and everyone is working for their own. These all lead to stress. On the other hand, we have job resources. Job resources are the positive aspects of a job. These help to reduce the job demands. They also help to, let's say, be more resilient in the face of work stress, and they also stimulate personal growth and development. Now, what the model says, in short, is that when there is a balance between job resources and job demands, employees are at their best. However, when we try to reduce job demands and increase the resources, we achieve well-being. Now, how does this relate to being a highly sensitive person? In some of the studies that I've been looking at for this presentation, it's been said that being a highly sensitive person makes you prone to burnout. However, that is not entirely true. Being a highly sensitive person is not a direct predictor of being in burnout. However, if improperly managed and without the right job resources, a person who is highly sensitive is much more prone to stress because they are easily arousable, right? The stimuli around them make them feel a lot of stress compared to the general population, and they also feel things much more intensely than we do. Then when you're stressed at work, this impairs your job satisfaction and work performance, right? You start to not be just as good at work, you start to miss deadlines, your work performance is lowering, and that is causing more stress. And this loop continues and continues until you get into burnout. Now, some practical factors that contribute to burnout, especially for highly sensitive people. There is the physical overstimulation of the environment, and I'm talking about anything like harsh light or noises or, I don't know, any kind of physical stressors. There is the emotional drain that we feel because of the stress, lack of boundaries that companies don't really impose between private life and work life, inadequate support from managers and from peers, high workloads that are not manageable by anyone, especially by a highly sensitive person, and then limited or inadequate coping strategies. Now, we've seen the bad, but what I want to talk about is what organizations, whether this means you're an employer, an HR professional, or a manager, can actually do to improve that for highly sensitive people, but also for their entire, let's say, population. And I want to start with management training. One of the things that I see in companies is that there are two main rules for promoting managers. You're either the best performer in the team and you get promoted to be a manager, or you're the oldest person in the team and you get promoted to a manager. Not only this is inadequate, however, these people are put in managerial positions without being offered any training. So we end up with people that are in positions and that they are at the forefront of employee well-being, but without having the right resources to deal with that. Now, besides offering training for managers, if I were to select one thing that I would like every manager to learn and to apply in their, let's say, day-to-day work, would be asking their employees, what can I do to support you? It's a simple question that we can all ask, and it shows empathy, it shows that we are there for them, and I think it would make everyone's lives easier. Moving forward, we're talking a lot about accessibility, especially today. Accessibility generally is related to disability, right? A lot of us associate a term with, for example, putting a ramp into a building for a person in a wheelchair to be able to access the building. However, it goes well above that. It can be any kind of function, service, product that an employee needs to use to do their job. As an employer, we need to make them accessible. For highly sensitive people, this may mean trying to minimize the stimuli that we were talking about earlier in the physical environment, but also making sure that the digital tools that they use are appropriate and accessible for them. Employee assistance programs, this is one of the interventions that I propose that actually costs money. This is a benefit that employers can offer, and I mean counseling services or stress management services. Indeed, they do cost money for the employer. However, it really helps not only highly sensitive people, but everyone get better coping strategies when dealing with workplace stress. Psychologically safe climates. This is a topic that we probably could make a separate conference on. However, what I want to say today is related to policies and guidelines. What we know is that in organizations, we often see those internal regulations that say we do not tolerate discrimination, we do not tolerate harassment. However, we rarely see what are the behaviors that we would like our employees to showcase. This is one thing that HR professionals could do, actually come in with a set of guidelines that not only try to reduce the counterproductive behaviors, but also show employees how they should act and what kind of values that organization has, and then speak with the leadership teams to exhibit those behaviors. Education. When I say education, I mean offering different training or workshops to understand more about the different, let's say, differences between us. An example of that is, I remember when I was working for Microsoft, we invited a professional to talk about anxiety during COVID. And obviously she spoke about, how are we dealing with the fact that our work and, let's say, our personal life have collided, the fact that we cannot go outside, we cannot enjoy seeing our family and friends, and all that burden that brings to us. Another thing that happened during that conference is that we also had our CFO come and speak about her own vulnerabilities. And imagine in a company like Microsoft, speaking in front of thousands of employees about how you as a top leader member also have anxiety and you're dealing with the same issues as them is extremely helpful. Another important aspect that I tend to see mostly in big organizations, but not so much in small ones, are employee resource groups. Employee resource groups or business resource groups basically are groups of people that have the same characteristics. Again, in Microsoft, we had employee resource group for women, we had them for people with different types of disabilities, also with neurodivergencies. So any kind of mutual characteristic that a group has, they were forming an employee resource group. This helps a lot with perceived social support at work. However, it also helps the companies. And I want to ask you all, how many of you use Microsoft Office, like Word or Excel or PowerPoint? So we all, okay, good. So pretty much everyone. I'm not sure if you noticed that when you write a document in Word, a few months back, maybe 6 months back, there was added a new feature that tells you how to make your document more accessible. It's the same for PowerPoint presentation. Well, what I want to tell you is that that particular feature of a product that is used by billions, I think, was actually proposed by a software engineer that was part of the employee resource group for disabilities in Microsoft US. So it was something absolutely incredible, proposed by a person that was given a chance to speak, and now it's being used by all of you apparently. Moving on, flexibility. Flexibility can mean pretty much anything, from having flexible working times, so it allows you to be able to go and pick up your kids. It means remote work as well. It can mean the fair distribution, let's say, of responsibility and proper planning of days off, and so on and so forth. It can also mean job crafting and allowing people to use their creativity in the way they achieve job tasks. In surveys where people are asked, what do you value most from your employer? The first thing is always pay and benefits, right? Because we all work for that. But then the second one is flexibility. It's much more important now, especially after COVID, than pretty much anything else. And then there is reasonable adjustments. Reasonable adjustments, again, is a term that generally is used in relation to disability. It can be, again, pretty much anything. If an employee comes and asks you to do something reasonable to help them achieve a better level of well-being, I would say do it because it's super important. Now, some closing remarks. I think tomorrow we're going to talk more about that, but highly sensitive people are a great asset to any employer. I was reading a study recently that they are amazing leaders because they have generally a higher emotional intelligence than we do. However, they are an asset to an employer when they are properly managed and when they are offered the right resources to exhibit these unique characteristics. Well-being at work, it's not just moral or it's not just legal, it's a strategic advantage to employers. A lot of the strategies that I presented earlier are actually free of costs, and they can be super beneficial not only for highly sensitive people but for the general population. And then to sum it up, I think it's important that we all remember that one size doesn't fit all. Even when we're talking about highly sensitive people, there are different levels of sensitivity that each of one has. So it's important to listen to individual needs and to try to, let's say, adjust to them whenever possible. Thank you.
Grazie, dottoressa.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that the panelists are fantastic because they stay with them the time allotted to them. Thank you very much for food for thought you gave us, and sustainability 360 degree and design for all. So now I invite in line with our model that you will discover soon, I invite the panelists to go and sit back amongst the audience, and I invite the other two panelists.
Vabbè, come volete. Va bene così? Ok. Allora, ora ho il piacere di presentare.
I have the pleasure to introduce Ida Romano, who is a school director and official of the school IC Orsa Maggiore. So you have the floor. So, good evening everyone, and thank you for coming. The introduction was very consistent with what I'm going to show you. We started with this. So today I would like to start with this image that you might have seen, but that is going right to the center of the topic that we want to face together. That is to say, space meant as a place that can become a privileged place in the educational and training process. And there is something weird in this image. We are used to see many changes occurring in our life. We got used to stay home, to receive a pack that we ordered online. We no longer send a letter, wait for a letter. But what has not changed is this world, the world of school. And if you get into any school in our country, you see that this is a situation you might encounter. Desks that are towards a blackboard, perhaps a digital blackboard, but we have students consider life vessels to fill, and the teacher is the one who has to supply them with information. And here we have a key stakeholder, so the main protagonist, which is space. Space is very important in education. When one realizes that space can become a real protagonist in the education process, we have conceived this project with these enlightened officials, Lidia Cangeni and Ottavio Fattorini, who created this model that is the Dada model. the acronym in Italian is Teaching for Learning Environments. And what is the core of the model? It's very important where you are, as important as what you do. So the where and the what. When we realize that space is essential for education, the school has to be unhinged. What does it mean? To start with movement. That is why we started our presentation with movement. Going towards means this inclination to learning. Students learn to walk towards their lessons and not passively assist. And this dimension, school space is just a big container that sets boundary and doesn't allow for creativity. They can learn by heart, but they do not interact with their classmates. So what happens? We have this deep awareness, and therefore the classroom becomes a space that triggers learning, that kicks off a learning process. But it can no longer be the traditional classroom that we know, but it's somehow different. It has to be unhinged, opened, transformed, but we do not want to pull down walls. We can have a learning space that is different because we have different things. For instance, we have colored walls because colors are just promoting learning. That color does not only guide learning but promotes learning, and there are some learning paths that are color-coded, and the desks are no longer set in the front of the blackboard, but are placed in a circular mode. Therefore, we have flexibility in learning. We go beyond the stagnant container that I mentioned and we have seen before. I can speak of my school that I have been directing for 5 years now, and we decided to start this type of teaching method. As you can see, we are a comprehensive school that is hosting children from 3 to 13 years of age, which is quite a wide age class, but it's a very delicate population because they are growing children, and we want to become an environment where children from 3 to 13 years of age learn as a whole, in total. So you see, this is access to the school. This is me with my 2 co-workers, and here you see welcome. Benvenuti means welcome, and it's in color, so guiding in the learning process. I will show our institute. Let's start from the secondary first level school, which is what we call middle school. Then you can see the plant that is circular. There is a movement, and the institute is Orsa Maggiore. Orsa Maggiore means a bigger dipper, or Orsa Major. And each corridor was named after a big constellation. And these are for teachers' rooms, and the students are not passively waiting for the teacher in their class, but they go to the teacher's classroom. So each classroom has not only same color, color matching the corridor color, but it's called a lab. We are no longer speaking of stationary classrooms, but labs that are more proactive, children, by moving, learn a lot. Not only the case matter, but they learn how to move around. They have given maps to move around in the school without getting lost. They got lost, but they went back on track. So we teach them how to overcome difficulties, how to help each other, how to become resilient. And our motto is no one should be left behind. This is the middle school, so first level school. We have these lockers that are the space of the student within the space of the school. So they're private environment that belongs to a wider environment, which is the school environment, and it's up to them. They are in charge for that particular locker, and they move autonomously, independently. They take books and move towards the teacher's room. Very important is also the fact that the concept can be applied to primary school. Why is it more difficult for primary school? Because, of course, children cannot move from one classroom to the other. Also because of the configuration of the plexus of the institute. So rooms are very important. You see dominant colors, you see the collaborative setting, and you see that children are not passive, they're interactive. Another example of primary school remodulate space in order to give time and space to other activities which are not front activities. This is circle time. It's a lesson of math that is done having the students sitting in circle and sharing. This is an innovative approach. That is an emotional roll call. The students don't say, "Here I am," but they say, "How are you?" So they answer the question, "How are you doing?" So this is emotional. It's based on emotions. You see faces with smiles. You see the children, when they come, they choose the emoji that best matches their situation. Sometimes they come in when they're sad and disheartened, and then they go back home, then they're very happy. If they're all happy, much better. So outdoor education is essential in our institute. Teaching outdoors means experiencing learning in a different context. Indoor learning is different from outdoor learning. That is why, for instance, we have this classroom that was set up together with WWF. It's the nature classroom, and this opens a window on how to use the funds given to schools. We are a state-run school, and therefore we have to use the funds for all these plans. So here, lockers for primary school. They also have lockers, and they use lockers to place their material. So space is a learning space. Look at the boy who just went into the cabin, the locker. So he's trying to peruse around and learn how big is this locker, what can he fit there. And then they're jumping around the lockers, and they have the opportunity to experience and grow. But what is quite special about us is the creche. Here we have also the project with very small children. There is a wise color coding. Orange is art, pink for reading, and green for English. Because there is a character that guides the English class, which is a dinosaur, and dinosaurs are green, and therefore children make connections and learn. we have to further support this project with the Cambridge project that was adopted because children study some topics in English. Why is it important? Because they learn that there is a space that is different, the space of the world, which is not your own space and the space of your country. And you have to be open to this different space, to find space for yourself. Sports project, we have a particular focus on sports. Children learn in any space, and this is a sort of playground for them, is healthy competition. They learn fair play, they respect others and others people's space. Rowing in Rome, and these are opportunities for growth. Of course, I should not hide that this requires a lot of work and dedication, because if you want to accomplish something, you need a lot of synergy. The turning point is consensus, sharing, agreement. So you see this word that is a sort of leitmotif: trust. Trust, teamwork, because nothing can be done by yourself alone. This is the first day of school, and Harry Potter was the theme, and they had also the hat ceremony. Family that trust the school and the education project, trust in students. Many of us think that it's not appropriate to give students the possibility to move around autonomously. This is not right, because children are surprising. They will surprise you. If you ask them why they're happy to come to school, they say, we are free to move in space. So requalifying space so that space can become the protagonist of the teaching education process. And let's go back to where we have seen totally marginalized the space. Space now is no longer marginalized, but becomes the main protagonist. Thank you.
Molte grazie.
Thank you very much. Space as a trigger for learning a holistic vision, mind and body. And Marietta Berani has a lot to say regarding the fact that we don't perceive just with the mind. Many emotions, many feelings go through our body. Last but not least, architect Pasquale Piroso. I'll give you a very short introduction, otherwise we won't have enough time to say everything you are and have done, but I'd like to stress that you created the Canova loft. You have the floor. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. A very interesting conference, I'd say, which has covered essential, important themes that conveyed emotions. Last but not least, the presentation of the speaker next to me. First of all, I would like to thank the Association of Architects of Rome for having invited me, and the Deputy President who's here with us for having invited me and for having believed in this project, which I have put in place. I'll tell you about. Now, obviously, I'm an architect. My office, I'd say, I'm lucky enough to have my office, a very prestigious one, not so much for me, but owing to the location. I'm at Palazzo Canova. It's an art space, and as the word suggests, it's the place where Antonia Canova used to make his sculptures. So the famous sculptor Canova used to work in those spaces, and for 20 years I have the honor and pleasure of working in this space. Can I have the remote control? Thank you. Just to give you an idea where this building is situated, we're smack in the center of Rome, in Piazza Augusto Imperatore, in the so-called tridente between Piazza di Spagna and Piazza di Popolo, and the Mausoleum of Augustus. It's a building that has its own history, because from there Canova used to create his wonderful works. So, hip hip hooray for art, and it's not by chance that I'm there. It was something that I strongly wanted, because I love art, and in my profession I always try and combine art and architecture. These are two fundamental elements of our projects, the projects of my office. We're here for an important topic. I've studied a bit and have come up with some notions, starting from Gropius, who was the advocate of the Bauhaus, and I'm struck by the name Bauhaus, which means the house of building. Bauhaus was set up to link master and pupil. So it's a school that has taught us some things. Today we're here 100 years later, and more actually, and we're talking about the new European Bauhaus. So the need for a school that is passed on from the past. So the history of the Bauhaus comes back today, and thanks to European initiatives, it becomes an important topic that we have discussed at length today. I was taking some notes whilst the others were speaking. What does sharing mean? What does master mean? What does pupil mean? Many colleagues now many colleagues talked about open space, about hamlets and villages, the digital nomads, slow tourism, shared knowledge, to come to three fundamental elements. The colleague before was talking about sustainability, beauty and inclusion. So these are themes that I have and I'm tackling at Palazzo CANOVA. I started off from the history. This is the building. Those images over there are the spaces where Canova used to work. The specific characteristic of Canova is that he was an artist, but I define him also as a businessman, because he relied on craftsmen, as we architects do. We create our project, which is then handed over to craft workers or business. So he was an artist-architect, besides being a major businessman. And in this space, he used to work on and sculpt his works. And in the space where we work today, he used to refine his sculptures. But besides this, today, and for over 10 years, in this space, you see this image of Luigi Ontani, with whom we've done many things on shared topics, sustainable things, and the topic of art. This space was opened in 2016, and we thought of opening it up to the city, so sharing a creative space where today there are artists. There's an architectural firm, there's the firm of another architect and a professor emeritus and a graphic design firm. We decided to open up to the city to share these spaces. So what does this mean? It means going outside our firm and making people come in to admire not the beauties of the artist or of Canova, but to get them involved, to make them participate. And we started off with this image that has no comments. It's a reference to art, to children, because Today, it's children who represent our future, so we need to get to them. We need to educate children not only to art, but to sustainability, and to make sure that social media do not become the fulcrum of the future of our youth, but that youngsters learn other things too. I'd like to start with an emotional video made in 2016, and it tells about this Palazzo Canova open day. So this was the video. We had about 80 kids and we made them sit on the ground. We showed them the architectural firms and the tiny space. They drew inspiration from the colors. And believe me, it was a day when the children didn't touch their mobile phones. They got their hands dirty, as you saw. And one of the kids in the interview said, "Oh dear, I haven't even used my mobile phone for a minute," and he was happy because he had painted. So, regarding sharing, this was my goal in that space. So, combining art and architecture, but not leave it closed in that space, but bring it outside, communicate it to the cities, to the city. We are creatives, and so creativity needs to be shared, in my view, but above all, it needs to be educated. And who else if not children who are our future? And then subsequently, the space has become, this is another event for children again, with some images. I'm moving through this rather quickly. And then COVID arrived, unfortunately, for everyone. And so the world stops. And so to continue this project, we decided to establish a space called Canova Gallery in March 2021. Again, this too was a challenge because we thought of sharing what we do, and by us, I am referring to architects at large, sharing what we do with whom? With craftsmen, businesses, and all those engaged in architecture and culture. So Loft Canova Studio Architettura becomes Canova Gallery, which together with some journalists and those who interpret art, design and architecture, well, together with them, we have decided to create this space and dedicate it to art. So join the firm with another space to make it a variable space, a space where you can hold events and work in synergy and by sharing. So synergy and sharing, that's always the goal pursued by my firm. I'll briefly show you what happened. This is the opening ceremony. We invited personalities, architects, and business owners, because businesses are essential for us architects. They tell us what we need to do, and above all, using what materials. So sharing the spaces, sharing major architects. This is an event focusing on architecture, and around the table we had distinguished architects and so on. And then journalist Giorgio Tartaro, who has become the artistic director of this space. Events focusing on museum, because immediately after COVID there was a need to go out. And why not? To work on diffuse museums and to spread art elsewhere, not just in museums, but in open spaces too. So on this occasion, we discussed this with directors of museums and of the auditorium, and a wonderful event was the last official event of Paolo Portoghesi, my professor, and I also had the honor of working with him. And he, just before dying, he came to my office, and I apologize, I'm getting a little emotional for this reason, and we shared an important topic, namely the preservation and protection of contemporary architecture. He had this fixation of preserving and making sure that Casa Papanici in Rome, which is a postmodern architectural work, could be restored and protected. So he strongly wanted this space, Canova Gallery, to communicate with architects and journalists. We have Edmondo Papanici, Luigi Ontani, and the guests were distinguished professors, and this was his last moment at our premises. Let's move on. Other events, including this one. This was a very important and topical event. We have Roberta Bocca, who is present there. We held a course on soft tourism. I won't dwell on this too much. So we're talking about tourism and awareness and sustainability, and thanks to architects we're able to do this too, and other events. And here we are. I wanted to close with an image of Paolo Portoghesi, and please allow me to read out one of the last phrases he left me with, which is obviously very topical, and it's this one. Keep on continuing to teach, to educate, passing on ideas, and feeling the duty to communicate, not to teach architecture. Everybody has to find the right way of doing architecture inside, but to teach how to think about the current situation in the world and draw the consequences, the conclusions. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you to our last speaker. Well, faced with the words of Portoghesi, I don't have much else to add, I have to say. But it seems that the beauty and creating new future, intergenerational future, interdisciplinary, disciplinary future is the essence. Based on the words that the professor has left us with. I would like to ask the other two panelists to step up again, and I would open up, since they were all extremely punctual. almost Swiss-like, even though none of them are Swiss origin. We still have some minutes. So if you like, you can use this time to engage in a conversation. If you have you received any stimuli and you'd like to offer some thoughts or contributions or ask questions.
No mic.
Però sono sicura che
I'm sure that the level was very high, even if unfortunately I was not with you this morning. We had a lot of stimuli coming from the many panelists. So the different geographical intergenerational experiences. I'm very glad that we have young people, young but very experienced. So it's up to you. It has been a long day. Perhaps you're tired. It's a unique opportunity, but I understand that you're tired. Or if our speakers would like to give us a latest insight, something that I had to leave aside because time was short. Mrs. Majorano was presenting a project that is very dear to her. If she wants to give us some brief information about this project. I'll be short, 1 minute, just to give you a very concrete example of space sharing in our institute to understand how we can move from one step to another and have a practical project. And we are carrying out a program for women's education, 2 afternoons dedicated to training with digital marketing, etc. So what happened at the end of the course? And we had 6th edition of this course. One of the participants that attended School 42 and then launched a startup, together with another participant, decided to meet again and to meet the other participants. So we have a webinar program within Febinario F, our hub, and we created a community of women which is growing and dealing with opportunities for women. This is a program. They meet once a month within the hub. This is a practical example that shows that any space, any time is right to, thanks to new opportunity and ideas, to launch new projects. If you're interested, I invite all women and women supporters to join in. It's just an aperitif. We meet for a drink, nothing formal. I wanted to add only something. Once again, I would like to thank the Association of Architects of Rome, not only for this event or for the events that they usually organize, but for one very important event that was organized. They opened the House of Architecture to students. They opened it up, and I think this is unique. It never happened before. Usually associations are very closed. They wanted to share with the city, but also sharing with students and discover new worlds. Pasquale, you know very well that we have a commission that is a plus commission. The motto is let's bring architecture in schools. We think that architecture is really very important and it has an added value within our society and our community. And we think that this principle is something that should be always present, and therefore we have a program that is carried out with schools, with protocol, and we have, of course, different levels of schools. So we have creches, we have nursery school, we have primary school, middle school, etc. And gender equality is important for us. We are all architects. We are really focused on sensitive planning, paying attention to the psychophysical well-being of the end users. And therefore, it is very important to understand that we can have an impact on the space around us and start a better, promote well-being. We started this activity slightly before the pandemic, to go back to pandemic, and you can understand something we wanted to do at school level, and we were hit by the pandemic, and therefore we had to stop. But we resumed our activities, and we have many schools joining in. So open door activities are very important, not only for schools, but for the whole community. I'm fully convinced, and I totally embraced the project, but because I'm really super confident. I am sure that only interaction, only sharing and respecting important issues that are fundamental, like inclusion, sustainability, only embracing this philosophy, we can do something. Otherwise, our civilization is over. This is my humble personal view. Either we can really take advantage of the pandemic and make this extra, walk the extra mile. And we were obliged to really stride forward. So it's the frog that has to jump out of the hot water and can jump very far away. This is a sort of metaphor that we like to use. I believe in this. I'm a believer. We will manage. Yes, we can. I have to say that we meet a lot of deans and school managers. I know that teachers really have a lot of responsibility but we have very good teachers who are really passionate. Yes, they are passionate. The association, I'm not promoting or advocating the association of architects. This is not the right forum. Sometimes we are considered only someone who collects fees from members, but we have also Paola Anzuini, who is a member of the association, and many of the speakers of the afternoon belong to the association, and we have a completely different mindset. We want to do things only if they bring something, and we try to do our best. Things we, however, succeeded in pulling down the walls and opening doors to people from outside, and we were able to create the synergy. Sorry, I took some extra time. I know that I have been sitting there not talking very much, so I took advantage of the time. Thank you very much. And this was one of the questions I wanted to ask to Mrs. Romano. She learned a lot from students, but also teachers play an important role. And tomorrow we have another stimulating half day. Many issues will be discussed again from different viewpoints, utopia or oblivion. Thank you. Oh, there is a question. Please.
I didn't know whether we were going to have more time, but I just wanted to thank you all, because I think together, like this, I don't know who organized that, I just know Maria was part of it, and I think the organization of this table was very kind of nicely put together, because there were very different elements of the same situation that we're trying to solve, and they were kind of put in from very different perspective. And I'm going to be the advocate of the devil, that's what they say. And something that I found in all of your presentations starting, so it was amazing because you started with a video, and I'm a highly sensitive person. So I found that video overwhelming. It was like, okay, that's meant to be a sensitive environment. Well, I want to go to work. And I was like, no, I'm not. Because there is so much artificial light. And we were talking about that need to go toward nature, to a much more natural light, to a much more green areas. And then everything else changed, right? And then sensitivity came into the picture, and it was like, okay, cool, that's sensitive, so taken into inclusion. But then again, everything was focused on productivity, and that pushing on, we have to retain talent, we have to make it possible, we have to. And I was like, okay, then where's the well-being? And then teachers came into the picture, and I was like, wonderful, then we're going to go back to the root, right? So where everything starts. And it was like, okay, so what about those that are highly sensitive in those environments where all these, again, kind of idea of productive and look what I'm doing is exposed on the walls. And for those that are highly sensitive, it's overstimulating. But again, it's because we are still kind of cut off by that idea of productivity. We have to make it a place where everybody can collaborate. We have to make it a place where everybody stays on and keeps going up the ramp, right? It has to be a place where we prove that we're doing a job. And I wanted to take off the shoulders of teachers and managers that kind of imposed, right, believe that our children have to learn beyond the fact of being well. They just have to learn, they just have to perform, they just have to reach out to good positions, they have to collaborate, they have to make what was called before very large and different weak ties, that was the word that was used before, right? And then there was that beautiful architectural final, right, where the children went outside again, and I could see the beauty of creativity. I could see the beauty of precisely trying to put together a mixture of creativity, art, and architecture, but in a way that was again overwhelming. And we were talking about space. We were talking about the importance of space. And if I put together everything, like there is no space in what is being discussed today to kind of process everything with time and with the neurological kind of balance that we're seeking with this event. So I was grateful that Maria invited me to this event, because to me, I urge everybody to understand sensory processing sensitivity, because something that our mentor, Dr. Elaine Aron, says, and I have the privilege to work with her and with Michael Plus, they say whatever is good for highly sensitive people is good for everyone. So I'm grateful that we're here today discussing that, and that I have had the opportunity to just share that honestly from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for what you're doing.
Grazie per quest'ultimo.
Thank you for this last and touching contribution. So I would like to thank all the panelists and all the participants who have stayed all the way to the end with interest. And I'd like to thank the Metropolitan City of Roma and the University of Lublin that has invited me here. And again, thank you to everybody, and see you tomorrow.